In the fall of 2019, a wealthy businessman in Seattle made a decision that would expose his children's true nature. His name was Robert Mitchell, 79 years old, self-made millionaire, founder of Mitchell Technologies, a software company he'd built from nothing in his garage in 1982. Robert had 3 children: Sarah, 42, Marcus, 39, Elena, 35, all successful in their own right, all busy with their own lives. All too busy, Robert believed, to spend time with their aging father. For 5 years, since his wife Catherine died in 2014, Robert had been trying to reconnect with his children. Weekly phone calls that went to voicemail, dinner invitations that were declined, holiday gatherings that were skipped. By 2019, Robert was tired of hoping, tired of waiting, tired of being the father who tried while his children did nothing. So he decided to conduct an experiment, a test, a way to measure, quantitatively and objectively, whether his children cared about him at all, or whether they only cared about his money. In September 2019, Robert called his attorney, Michael Chen, and requested a meeting. Urgent, confidential, unusual. What Robert proposed shocked even his lawyer. But it was legal, and it was brilliant, and it would reveal everything. This is the story of the inheritance test, and the 3 children who failed it spectacularly. Robert Mitchell sat in the law office of Chen & Associates on September 12, 2019, looking across the mahogany desk at his attorney of 23 years. Michael Chen had handled Robert's business contracts, his estate planning, his divorce from his first wife in 1991, and his remarriage to Catherine in 1993. He'd drafted Catherine's will when she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2014. He'd probated her estate when she died 6 months later. He knew Robert Mitchell better than almost anyone, which is why what Robert proposed that September afternoon shocked him completely. "I want to change my will," Robert said, sliding a handwritten document across the desk. "Radically. And I need it done by next week." Michael picked up the paper, began reading, and his eyebrows climbed higher with each line. "Robert, I have to ask, are you sure about this?" "Completely sure. I've thought about nothing else for 6 months. I need to know the truth, and this is the only way to find out." What Robert had written was extraordinary, and cruel, and perfectly designed to reveal whether his children loved him or loved his money. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Robert would announce to his 3 children that his estate, estimated at $4.2 million after taxes and debts, would be distributed based on a point system over the next 2 years. Every time one of them visited him, they would earn $10,000 toward their inheritance. But every month that passed without a visit would cost them $25,000. The test would run for exactly 24 months, from October 1, 2019, to September 30, 2021. At the end, whatever amount each child had accumulated would be theirs. If they accumulated nothing, or went into the negative, they would receive nothing. The rules were specific. A visit was defined as spending at least 2 hours with Robert at his home, his choice of restaurant, or any location he designated. Phone calls didn't count. Video calls didn't count. Only in-person visits. Visits had to be at least 1 week apart. They couldn't accumulate points by visiting multiple times in 1 week. Robert would maintain a detailed log of every visit, date, time, duration, and most importantly, his subjective assessment of whether the visit was genuine or perfunctory. At the end of 2 years, Robert would have 2 sets of numbers, the mathematical calculation of visits and non-visits, and his personal evaluation of whether his children had shown real care or merely performed obligatory duty. The mathematical calculation would determine the money they received. Robert's personal evaluation would determine something else, something he hadn't told his lawyer, something he'd written in a sealed envelope marked to be opened after distribution. Michael Chen read through the proposal 3 times, making notes, considering legal implications, thinking through potential challenges. "This is going to create enormous tension in your family," he said finally. "You understand that? This will change your relationship with your children permanently." "My relationship with my children is already permanently broken," Robert replied. "They haven't visited me voluntarily in 5 years. Not since Catherine died. Every interaction we have is initiated by me and tolerated by them. I'm tired of wondering if they care. This will give me a definitive answer. And if the answer is that they don't care, if they only visit for the money, then at least I'll know. And I can plan accordingly. Michael drafted the document that week. Technically, it wasn't a will. It was a contractual agreement between Robert and his 3 children, with the estate held in trust and distributed based on performance metrics. Unusual but legal. Binding but challengeable. Cruel but effective. On September 27, 2019, Robert invited his 3 children to dinner at his home in Bellevue, Washington. The first time all 3 had been there simultaneously since Catherine's funeral 5 years earlier. Sarah flew in from San Francisco, where she worked as a marketing executive for a tech startup. She'd been divorced twice, no children, lived alone in a high-rise apartment, worked 70 hours a week. Marcus drove from Portland, 2.5 hours south. Corporate lawyer. Married to Vanessa, 2 sons aged 7 and 9. Soccer dad. Weekend golfer. Member of country club. Successful by every external measure. Elena came from Seattle proper, 30 minutes away. Investment banker. Engaged to Bradley, wedding planned for next summer. Spin class instructor on weekends. Marathon runner. Always busy, always scheduled, always somewhere else. They arrived at Robert's home at 7 o'clock on a Friday evening, each bringing wine or flowers, each making small talk, each clearly wondering why their father had summoned them together. Robert served dinner, catered, he wasn't much of a cook since Catherine died, and made pleasant conversation through the meal. Asked about their work, their partners, their plans. They answered politely, checking phones occasionally, clearly ready to leave as soon as was acceptable. After dessert, Robert cleared his throat and said, "I need to discuss something important with you. About my estate. About your inheritance." That got their attention. All 3 set down their phones. Looked at their father. Waited. Robert explained the test. The visits. The points. The money earned or lost. The 2-year timeline. The final distribution based on accumulated amounts. Silence. Complete, stunned silence. Then Sarah spoke first, her voice carefully controlled but clearly angry. "You're bribing us to visit you?" "I'm quantifying whether you would visit me without bribery," Robert corrected. "For 5 years, you haven't. Now I'm giving you a financial incentive. Let's see if that makes a difference." Marcus leaned back in his chair, calculating. "So if I visit once a month for 2 years, that's 24 visits, times 10,000, $240,000. But if I skip a month, I lose $25,000. Net loss of $35,000 per missed month." "Correct," Robert said. "Do the math. Figure out what your time with your father is worth." Elena's face had gone red. "This is insulting. We're not children. We don't need to be incentivized to visit you. And yet you don't visit me. Haven't for years. So clearly you do need incentive. I'm providing it. What if we refuse?" Sarah asked. "What if we don't participate in your sick little experiment? Then you receive nothing. The money goes to charity. Your choice." They argued for an hour. Called it manipulative. Called it cruel. Called it unfair. Called Robert controlling and bitter and vindictive. He listened calmly. Let them vent. Then asked, "Are you finished? Because the test begins October 1st, 3 days from now. Either you participate or you don't. Either you visit or you don't. Either you show me you care or you prove you never did." They left that night angry and offended. Sarah slammed the door. Marcus left without saying goodbye. Elena called from her car to say, "This is going to destroy our relationship, Dad. I hope you know that." Robert stood in his empty house and thought, our relationship was already destroyed. This just makes it visible. On October 1st, 2019, the inheritance test officially began. Robert created a spreadsheet. 3 columns, Sarah, Marcus, Elena. Rows for each month over 2 years. A notation system, for visit, for no visit, notes for duration and quality. He also started a journal, handwritten, detailed, subjective observations that wouldn't go in the official record but that mattered to him personally. Month 1, October 2019. All 3 children visited. Sarah came October 6, Sunday afternoon. Stayed 2 hours and 17 minutes, Robert timed it. She brought coffee from a local shop, sat in the living room, asked about his health, his hobbies, his week. Conversation was stiff but present. She checked her phone twice. She seemed uncomfortable but trying. Robert noted in his journal, Sarah trying to fulfill requirement. Not joyful but not hostile. Grade, C+. Marcus came October 14th, Tuesday evening after work. Stayed 2 hours exactly, clearly watching the clock. Brought nothing. Talked mostly about his own life, his son's soccer games, Vanessa's new job, the remodel they were planning. Asked Robert maybe 3 questions total. Left promptly at 8 p.m. saying he had work early. Robert's note. Marcus treating this as obligation. Minimum effort. Checkbox mentality. Grade, C-. Elena came October 23rd, Wednesday at lunch. Met Robert at his favorite Italian restaurant. Stayed 2 hours and 40 minutes, longest visit, but spent 45 minutes on her phone dealing with a work crisis. Apologized repeatedly. Tried to be present, but clearly distracted. Robert's note. Elena conflicted. Wants to do well on test but can't let go of work. Multitasking, even during visit. Grade, C. By the end of October, all 3 children had earned $10,000. Running totals, Sarah $10,000, Marcus $10,000, Elena $10,000. Robert felt nothing. No joy at seeing them. No satisfaction at their compliance. Because that's what it was. Compliance. Obligation. Performance. Not love. Month 2, November 2019. Sarah visited November 3rd, Sunday again, establishing a pattern. 2 hours and 5 minutes. Brought bagels. Conversation slightly warmer than October. Asked about Robert's childhood, something she'd never asked before. Robert suspected she was building rapport strategically, trying to improve her grade, but appreciated the effort nonetheless. Robert's note. Sarah learning to perform caring. Still feels calculated but improving. Grade, B-. Marcus visited November 20th. 2 weeks later than optimal. Wednesday evening. 2 hours exactly again. This time brought his younger son, Tyler, age 7. Tyler played on his iPad the entire visit while Marcus and Robert talked. Marcus seemed to think bringing his son counted as extra effort. Robert disagreed. The child's presence meant Marcus could avoid real conversation by redirecting to Tyler periodically. Robert's note. Marcus using child as buffer. Avoiding depth. Clock watching continues. Grade, D+. Elena did not visit in November. Called November 28th, Thanksgiving Day, to say she was slammed with work and couldn't find time, but would definitely make it next month. Robert marked N next to Elena's November entry. Her account decreased by $25,000. New totals, Sarah $20,000, Marcus $20,000, Elena minus $15,000. Elena called December 2nd, panicked. Dad, I saw the spreadsheet you emailed. I'm negative $15,000? That's not fair. I was going to visit, work just. The rules were clear, Robert interrupted. Every month without a visit costs $25,000. You chose work over visiting. That choice has a price. But I can make it up, right? I can visit twice in December. No. 1 visit per month maximum. You can't bank visits. November is closed. December is a new opportunity. Use it or lose another $25,000. She hung up angry. But she visited December 8th, Sunday morning. Stayed 3 hours. Brought flowers and homemade cookies. Bradley, her fiancé, had made them, she admitted. She asked about Catherine, Robert's late wife, which surprised him. They looked through photo albums together. She seemed genuinely interested, or was an excellent actress. Robert's note. Elena scared by negative balance. Overperforming now. Hard to tell if genuine or strategic. Grade B. Sarah visited December 15th, same 2-hour range. Brought wine. Asked if Robert wanted to attend her company's holiday party with her. First invitation to her life in years. Robert declined, crowds bothered him now, but appreciated being asked. Robert's note, Sarah expanding effort beyond minimum requirement. Possible breakthrough. Grade B+. Marcus visited December 23rd, brought wife Vanessa and both sons this time. Clear performance. Look, Dad, we're including you in family time. But the visit was chaotic. Boys running around, Vanessa on her phone, Marcus distracted managing everyone. They stayed 2.5 hours, but Robert felt more exhausted than connected. Robert's note, Marcus checking box with maximum efficiency. One visit satisfies test and family obligation. Clever but hollow. Grade C-. End of year 1, quarter 1, October-December 2019. Sarah, 3 visits, $30,000. Marcus, 3 visits, $30,000. Elena, 2 visits, 1 missed month, -$5,000. Robert's journal entry, December 31st, 2019. 3 months into the test. Initial results. All 3 visit when money is at stake. None visited in the 5 years before money was at stake. Conclusion. Money motivates them. I do not. Sarah is trying hardest, improving each visit. Not sure if it's genuine growth or skilled performance, but at least she's evolving. Marcus maintains minimum effort. Clock watching. Box checking. Using family as props. Most frustrating because he lives closest, 2 hours away, yet treats visits like burdensome errands. Elena started negative, panicked, now overcompensating. Most volatile. Most strategic. Least authentic. None of them have asked me how I'm doing. How it feels to be tested and found wanting for 5 years. How it feels to design a test because your own children won't love you without incentive. They ask about my health, my week, my hobbies. Surface questions with surface answers. Nobody asks the real question. Dad, are you okay? Are you lonely? Do you need us? Because they don't want to hear the answer. 6 more quarters to go. Let's see what happens when the novelty wears off. Month 4, January 2020. Sarah visited January 5th, pattern holding. But this time she asked Robert if he wanted to start a weekly phone call. Not for test purposes, just to stay connected between visits. Robert agreed. They started calling Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Short calls, 15 minutes, but consistent. Robert's note, Sarah initiating additional contact outside test parameters. Either genuine caring or long game strategy. Monitoring. Grade B+. Marcus visited January 18th, later than previous months. 2 hours and 8 minutes. Brought nothing. Talked about remodel again. Apparently the kitchen renovation was over budget and stressful. Asked Robert for advice, which Robert gave, but suspected Marcus was killing time with house talk rather than engaging meaningfully. Robert's note, Marcus coasting. No growth. No effort increase. Maintaining minimum. Grade D+. Elena visited January 12th. 2 hours 15 minutes. Brought lunch, takeout from Robert's favorite Vietnamese restaurant, which required her to remember his favorite place and order. Points for effort. Conversation about wedding planning. Date set for June 2021. She invited Robert to give her away. He accepted. She cried. Moment felt genuine. Robert's note, Elena breakthrough? Wedding emotion real. Asking me to walk her down aisle equals significant. Possible turning point. Grade A-. End of January. All 3 visited. All 3 earned $10,000. Running totals. Sarah $40,000. Marcus $40,000. Elena $5,000. Month 5, February 2020. Sarah visited February 9th. Brought old family photos she'd found in her storage unit. They went through them together. Robert told stories Sarah had never heard, about her grandparents, about Robert's own childhood, about the early years of his business. Sarah recorded some stories on her phone, so I don't forget. 3 hours total. Longest visit yet. Robert's note, Sarah invested in family history, asking for stories, recording them. This feels real. Grade A-. Marcus did not visit in February. Called February 23rd. Dad, I'm sorry. Marcus Jr. has been sick. Vanessa's dealing with stuff. Work is insane. I couldn't make it happen. Robert, you live 2 hours away. A visit is 4 hours round trip plus 2 hours here. 6 hours total. In an entire month, you couldn't find 6 hours. Marcus, you don't understand how busy. Robert, I understand exactly how busy. I understand priorities. You've made yours clear. Marcus's account, minus $15,000. New total, $25,000. Elena visited February 14th, Valentine's Day. Brought Bradley, her fiancé. Robert met him for the first time. Nice young man, patent attorney, clearly loved Elena. They stayed 3 hours. Bradley asked Robert questions about his business, his marriage to Catherine, his life. More interest from Elena's fiancé than from any of Robert's own children. Robert's note, Bradley might be best thing to happen to Elena. He models genuine interest. She mirrors him. Together they're better than she is alone. Grade A. End of February. Sarah $50,000. Marcus $25,000. Elena $15,000. March 2020. The world changed. COVID-19 pandemic hit. Lockdowns, social distancing, everything shutting down. Robert was 79, high risk, immunocompromised from medication for a heart condition. His doctor ordered, no visitors, isolate, essential trips only. The test became impossible to continue under original rules. Robert called his attorney March 20, 2020. Michael, we need to modify the test. Force majeure. Nobody can visit now without risking my life. What do we do? They agreed. From March 2020 through whenever lockdowns ended, visits would be redefined as video calls, minimum 1 hour, scheduled in advance, meaningful conversation. Points would continue. $10,000 per month with qualifying video visit, minus $25,000 for months without. Robert emailed his children the modification March 22nd. Sarah video called March 25th. 1 hour 40 minutes. Asked about his food supply, his prescriptions, his isolation, his mental health. Offered to arrange grocery delivery. Offered to send books, puzzles, anything to help him cope. Genuine concern. Robert's note, Sarah most worried about me during pandemic. First child to ask what I need rather than what she needs to do for the test. Major breakthrough. Grade A. Marcus video called March 29th. 1 hour and 3 minutes. Clearly doing other things during call. Robert heard typing, heard Marcus responding to someone off camera. Multitasking. Minimum effort, even when effort was just staring at a screen. Robert's note, Marcus can't even give me focused attention when all I'm asking for is a video call. What does that say? Grade D. Elena did not call in March. Sent a text March 30th. Sorry Dad, crazy month, forgot to schedule call, will definitely do April. Her account, minus $25,000. New total, minus $10,000. Running totals after 6 months. Sarah $60,000. Marcus $35,000. Elena minus $10,000. Months 7 through 12. April-September 2020. The pandemic wore on. Robert isolated in his Bellevue home. Groceries delivered. No human contact. His world shrunk to Zoom calls and phone conversations and the windows overlooking Lake Washington. He turned 80 in May 2020. Sarah organized a drive-by birthday parade, contacted Robert's neighbors, his old business partners, his few remaining friends. 20 cars drove past his house, honking, holding signs, waving. Sarah orchestrated the whole thing from San Francisco. Robert stood on his porch and cried. Sarah's video calls became twice monthly. Not required, just voluntary. She'd call Sundays at 3 p.m. and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Sometimes they'd talk for 2 hours. She asked about his loneliness. He admitted it was crushing. She told him she loved him. First time she'd said it in years. Robert's Journal, June 2020. Sarah has transformed. Either she's the world's best long-con artist or something in her genuinely changed. I'm choosing to believe the latter. Maybe the test worked. Maybe quantifying my loneliness made it visible to her in a way complaining never did? Or maybe the pandemic, with its isolation and mortality reminders, woke something up in her? Either way, she's trying. Really trying. And I'm grateful. Marcus video called monthly. Exactly monthly. Minimum 1 hour. Maximum 1 hour 15 minutes. Conversations surface level. How are you? Fine. How are the boys? Fine. How's work? Fine. 60 minutes of pleasantries then. Okay dad, gotta run. Every single time. By August 2020, Robert stopped expecting depth from Marcus. Some children don't have it in them. Some relationships are broken beyond repair. Marcus would earn his money. He was consistent if nothing else, but they'd never be close. Elena oscillated wildly. April, called, $5,000 total. May, didn't call, minus $5,000 total. Back to negative $20,000. June, called, panicked about negative balance, minus $10,000. July, didn't call, minus $35,000. August, called, full meltdown on video, crying. Dad, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I keep doing this, I want to be better, I just forget, I get busy, I'm terrible. Robert watched his daughter cry through the computer screen and felt nothing. Not sympathy, not anger, just exhaustion. Elena, you're 35 years old. You're a successful investment banker. You manage millions of dollars. You plan complex financial deals. You organize your wedding. But you can't remember to call your father once a month. I know, I'm awful. You're not awful. You're honest. You've shown me clearly that I'm not a priority. That's valuable information. Thank you for the clarity. Dad, please. It's okay, sweetheart. Really. I'm not angry. I'm just informed. The test is working. It's showing me exactly who you are. And you're showing me you're someone who can't prioritize her father even when $25,000 is at stake each month. Imagine how little you'd prioritize me if money wasn't involved. She hung up sobbing. Didn't call in September. Her account hit minus $60,000. End of year 1, October 2019 to September 2020. Sarah, 12 visits/calls, $120,000. Marcus, 11 visits/calls, 1 missed, $85,000. Elena, 6 visits/calls, 6 missed, minus $60,000. Robert's Journal, October 1st, 2020. 1 year complete. Halfway through the test. Sarah, exceeding expectations. Growth visible. Connection deepening. She's becoming the daughter I always hoped for. Is it the money? Is it the test? Is it the pandemic? Does it matter? She's here. She's trying. That's enough. Marcus, consistent mediocrity. He'll earn a decent inheritance through sheer reliability, but we'll never be close. He's doing the minimum and nothing more. At least I know where I stand. Elena, catastrophic failure. She's $60,000 in the hole. At this rate she'll inherit nothing. But more importantly, she's proven she can't maintain connection even with massive financial incentive. When I die, she'll vanish completely. Better to know now. 1 more year, 12 more months. Then the final reckoning. But I've already learned what I needed to know. Year 2 began October 2020. Lockdowns were easing slightly. Outdoor visits possible with masks and distance. Robert modified the test again. In-person visits allowed outdoors, or video calls still acceptable. Participants' choice. October 2020. Sarah flew to Seattle. First in-person visit in 7 months. They met at a park on Lake Washington. Sat on separate benches 6 feet apart, masked. Talked for 4 hours. She brought photos of Catherine, Robert's late wife, Sarah's stepmother, and said, "Tell me about Mom. I never asked enough about her when she was alive. I want to know now." They talked about Catherine until the sun set. Robert cried. Sarah cried. When they stood to leave, Sarah broke social distancing, walked over, hugged him. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry I waited for a test to show you. Robert's note, Sarah breakthrough complete. This is real. Finally. Grade, A+. Marcus video called. Didn't visit even though outdoor visits were allowed. Too risky, he said. Robert noted the excuse but said nothing. Marcus's account increased to $95,000. Elena visited. First time in 4 months. Desperate to recover from negative balance. Met Robert at the same park. Brought coffee. Tried to recreate Sarah's emotional moment. Asked about Catherine. Asked about Robert's loneliness, but it felt scripted. Performed. She was copying Sarah's playbook without Sarah's sincerity. Robert's note, Elena imitating Sarah but without authentic feeling. Can't manufacture connection that isn't there. Grade, C-. Elena's account, -$50,000. November 2020, Sarah visited again. Drove from San Francisco, 12-hour drive, because she wanted to see him in person, not through a screen. Stayed the weekend. First time she'd spent more than 4 hours with Robert in a decade. They cooked together, watched old movies, sorted through Catherine's belongings that Robert had been avoiding for 6 years. Sunday morning before Sarah left, she said, Dad, I need to tell you something. I'm going to keep visiting after the test ends, not for money, just because I want to. Because I finally understand what I've been missing. I wasted 15 years being too busy. I'm not wasting whatever time you have left. Robert's journal. Sarah has become the daughter Catherine always believed she could be. Catherine would be proud. I'm proud. The test worked for at least one of them. Marcus video called again. Same hour-long surface conversation. Account, $105,000. Elena visited again. 2 months in a row. First time she'd been consistent. But conversations remained surface level. She asked about the wedding, asked if June 2021 was still realistic with pandemic, asked if Robert would still walk her down the aisle despite her negative test balance. Of course I will, Robert said. You're my daughter. The test measures priority, not love. I still love you even though you've proven I'm not your priority. Elena's account, -$40,000. December 2020, holiday season. Lockdowns intensifying again. No in-person gatherings allowed. Sarah sent Robert a Christmas care package. Homemade cookies, books she thought he'd like, a digital photo frame preloaded with family photos, a handwritten letter 10 pages long about memories and regrets and gratitude. She video called Christmas Day. 2 hours. Introduced Robert to her new boyfriend, first serious relationship Sarah had had since her second divorce. I want you to meet him, Dad. He's important to me. And you're important to me. So you should meet. Robert met James via Zoom. Nice man. Asked Robert thoughtful questions. Made Sarah laugh. Robert gave his approval. Marcus video called Christmas evening. 30 minutes. Clearly had family obligations elsewhere. Rushed. Perfunctory. Merry Christmas, Dad. Love you. Gotta go. Account, $115,000. Elena didn't call. Texted, sorry, crazy holiday with Bradley's family, we'll catch up in January. Account, -$65,000. End of 2020, Sarah $140,000. Marcus $115,000. Elena -$65,000. January through June 2021, the final 6 months. Robert's health was declining. The isolation, the stress, the age, all catching up. His doctor found an irregular heartbeat in February. Nothing immediately dangerous but a warning sign. He started a new medication, felt tired more often. Sarah noticed during their weekly calls, Dad, you sound exhausted. Are you okay? He told her about the heart issue. She freaked out, wanted to fly up immediately. He told her not to. Pandemic still raging, too risky. They compromised. She'd call daily, just to check in. Not for the test, just because. She did. Every morning, 8 a.m. Pacific, Sarah called. Sometimes they'd talk 5 minutes. Sometimes 50. Depended on Robert's energy. She never missed a day. January through June, 181 consecutive daily calls. Robert's journal, March 2021. Sarah has transcended the test. She calls daily, visits monthly, sends care packages, introduces me to her boyfriend, includes me in her life. The test gave her structure to start, but she's maintained it independently. She's the daughter I always wanted, and I get to know her now, in my final years. That's enough. That's everything. Marcus maintained his pattern. Monthly video calls, 1 hour, nothing more. But something interesting happened in April 2021. Marcus's son Tyler, now 8 years old, started joining the calls. Tyler would ask Robert questions about his childhood, his business, his life. Questions Marcus never asked. The child was more curious about his grandfather than the father was about his own dad. Robert started sending Tyler books, science books, history books, adventure books. Tyler sent thank you notes, handwritten, adorable. Marcus would show Robert the notes during calls, proud of his son's manners, oblivious to the irony that his 8-year-old was modeling better grandchild behavior than Marcus modeled son behavior. Robert's journal, May 2021. Marcus will never change. But Tyler might. Maybe I'm investing in the wrong generation. Maybe Tyler will be the grandson who cares when Marcus is the son who doesn't. That's something. Marcus's account, $165,000. He'd been perfectly consistent. Minimum effort, maximum efficiency, solid return. Elena spiraled completely. January 2021, called, -$55,000. February, didn't call, -$80,000. March, didn't call, -$105,000. April, called, desperate, -$95,000. May, didn't call, -$120,000. June, wedding month, visited in person. Elena's wedding was June 12, 2021. Small ceremony, pandemic limited capacity. Robert walked her down the aisle as promised. She looked beautiful, cried when she saw him, introduced him to Bradley's parents, who knew all about the test, and looked at Robert with a mixture of respect and awkwardness. At the reception, Elena pulled Robert aside. Dad, I know I'm failing the test. I know I'm at -$110,000. I know I'm probably getting nothing. But thank you for being here today. Thank you for walking me down the aisle even though I've been a terrible daughter. Robert hugged her. I love you, Elena. The test measures priority, not love. You're my daughter. I'll always be here for your big moments. I just wish you'd be here for my small ones. She nodded, crying. Didn't promise to change. Didn't say she'd do better. Just cried and nodded. Robert knew. She'd never change. The test had revealed her completely. Elena's account after June, -$110,000. July 2021, 3 months left. Sarah visited in person. They went to dinner at a restaurant, first indoor dining in 18 months. Sarah told Robert she'd been offered a promotion that would require relocating to New York. Huge career opportunity. More money. More prestige. But farther from Seattle. I'm thinking of turning it down, she said. Because I want to be close to you. I've missed too much already. I don't want to miss more. Robert was stunned. Sarah, you can't turn down your career for me. I'm 80 years old. I might have 5 years left, might have 10, might have 1. You're 43. You have decades of career ahead. I also have one father. And I nearly lost our relationship because I prioritized career over family for 15 years. I'm not making that mistake again. She took the New York job. But she negotiated remote work 3 weeks a month so she could be in Seattle near Robert. 1 week monthly in New York for essential meetings, 3 weeks remote from Seattle. She moved to Seattle in August 2021, rented an apartment 15 minutes from Robert's house, started visiting twice a week, not for the test only required once monthly, but because she wanted to. Robert's Journal, August 2021. My daughter moved across the country to be near me. Not for the test, not for money, because she wants to be here. I don't have words for what that means. Marcus video called. Same pattern. Account, $185,000. Elena called August 10th. First call in 2 months. Account, minus $100,000. September 2021, final month of the test. Sarah visited 4 times in September. Weekly visits that weren't required but happened anyway. They were building a routine. Tuesday dinners at Robert's house. She'd bring groceries, cook together, stay for a few hours. Not because of money. Because of choice. Marcus visited in person for the first time in months. September 28th, 2 days before the test ended. Brought Vanessa and the boys. Clear strategic move. End the test with a strong showing. They stayed 3 hours. Marcus was jovial, engaged, present in a way he hadn't been in 23 months. Robert saw through it, but appreciated the effort nonetheless. Marcus's account, $195,000. Elena visited September 25th, 1 week before the test ended. Brought Bradley. They sat in Robert's living room and Elena said, "Dad, I know I failed. I know I'm $100,000 negative and that means I inherit nothing. I'm not here to beg for forgiveness or make excuses. I just wanted to say, you were right. The test showed my true priorities, and I'm ashamed. I'm going to do better. Not for money. I've lost that opportunity. But because I should. Because you deserve better." Robert nodded. Acknowledgement is a start, but acknowledgement without change is just confession. Let's see if you actually do better. She didn't promise. Just said, "I'm going to try." September 30th, 2021. The test ended at midnight. Final totals after 24 months. Sarah Mitchell, 24 visits, never missed a month, plus countless extra calls and visits beyond requirements. Official account, $240,000. Marcus Mitchell, 22 visits, missed 2 months, consistent but minimum effort. Official account, $195,000. Elena Mitchell, 10 visits, missed 14 months, catastrophic failure. Official account, minus $110,000. Robert prepared for the final distribution. Called his attorney October 1st. "Michael, it's time. Schedule the reading. I want all 3 children present. I want you there. I have some surprises." Surprises? Beyond the obvious distribution. Oh yes. The monetary distribution is only part of the test. The other part, the real part, is about to be revealed. Michael Chen had known Robert Mitchell for 23 years, and even he had no idea what Robert had planned. October 15th, 2021, the reading of the distribution. Robert's living room. All 3 children present. Michael Chen presiding. A notary to witness signatures. Everything legal and binding. Michael began, "We are gathered to distribute the inheritance test results after 24 months of participation. The following amounts have been earned based on visit frequency and monthly penalties." Sarah Mitchell, $240,000. Marcus Mitchell, $195,000. Elena Mitchell, negative $110,000, therefore $0 distribution. However, Elena interrupted. "There's more. However," Michael continued, "Robert has additional stipulations." Robert stood, looked at his 3 children, spoke. "The money you've just heard? That's not your inheritance. That's your character score." Silence. Confused faces. "What?" Marcus asked. "The test wasn't about money," Robert said. "It was about character. About whether you'd visit me if you thought money was at stake. For 2 years, I measured that. And you all responded exactly as I expected." "Let me be very clear," Robert continued, his voice steady and calm. "The money I just told you about, $240,000 for Sarah, $195,000 for Marcus, 0 for Elena, that's not real. Those accounts don't exist. I'm not giving any of you that money." 3 stunned faces stared back at him. "You've got to be kidding," Marcus said, his voice rising. We participated in your sick test for 2 years and now you're saying it was fake? Not fake. A measurement. A quantification of how much you'd engage with me if you believed money was at stake. And the results were fascinating. Robert pulled out a bound document, the full test results, 2 years of data, spreadsheets, journal entries, analysis. Sarah, you visited every single month for 24 months. You exceeded requirement. You called voluntarily. You moved to Seattle to be closer to me. Your character score, $240,000. Meaning your behavior suggested you valued our relationship at approximately $10,000 per month of effort. Sarah's face was unreadable. Shock, confusion, possibly anger. Marcus, you visited 22 out of 24 months. You maintained minimum requirements with mathematical precision. You never gave more than necessary, but rarely gave less. Your character score, $195,000. Meaning you valued our relationship at exactly the minimum required to maximize return on investment. Marcus's jaw was clenched. His wife Vanessa looked mortified. Elena, you visited 10 out of 24 months. You went negative $110,000 by the test's own rules. You couldn't maintain connection even with massive financial incentive. Your character score, $0. Meaning you valued our relationship at less than the effort required to earn money. Elena was crying. Bradley held her hand. Now, Robert said, here's the real inheritance distribution. He nodded at Michael, who opened a different folder. The actual will, the real estate distribution, the legitimate legal document. My estate is worth approximately $4.2 million after taxes and debts. Here's how it will be distributed. To my daughter Sarah Mitchell, $0. To my son Marcus Mitchell, $0. To my daughter Elena Mitchell, $0. The room erupted. What the hell, Dad? Marcus shouted. You're leaving us nothing. Elena sobbed. Sarah sat silently, watching her father with an expression that was impossible to read. Robert raised his hand. Let me finish. The room quieted. You three will inherit nothing because you don't need it. You're all successful. Sarah makes $180,000 a year. Marcus makes $220,000. Elena makes $240,000. You have careers, savings, homes. You don't need my money. You want it. There's a difference. He pulled out 3 checks from his pocket, placed them on the coffee table. However, there are 3 people who do need it. 3 people who cared for me over the past 2 years without any expectation of financial return. 3 people who showed me kindness, attention, and genuine concern because they're good humans, not because they were testing for an inheritance. The first check is for $400,000. It's made out to Helen Sanderson, my home healthcare nurse who's been visiting twice a week for 18 months since my heart condition was diagnosed. She brings me meals, manages my medications, talks to me about her life, and asks about mine. She makes me feel like a person, not a patient. She's raising 2 kids as a single mother and working 2 jobs. This will change her life. The second check is for $180,000. It's made out to Carlos Mendoza, my landscaper. Carlos has been maintaining my yard for 12 years. When Catherine died, he started coming inside to check on me. He brings his children sometimes. They call me Abuelo Robert. He invites me to his daughter's quinceañera. He texts me photos of his garden. He treats me like family. This will pay off his house and send his kids to college. The third check is for $220,000. It's made out to Ann Patterson, my neighbor, and has been bringing me dinner once a week for 2 years. She texts me every morning. Morning Robert, you good? She calls emergency services when I fell last April and couldn't get up. She sits with me on my porch and talks about her late husband, and I talk about Catherine and we grieve together. This will fund her retirement. These 3 people, Helen, Carlos, and showed me more care in 2 years than you 3 showed me in 5. And they did it without any expectation of payment. They did it because they're kind. Because I mattered to them as a person, not as a bank account. So they're getting $800,000 of my $4.2 million estate. The rest, $3.4 million, is going to charity. The Seattle Children's Hospital, where Catherine volunteered for 10 years. The Alzheimer's Research Foundation, because I'm starting to forget things and I'm terrified of disappearing. The food bank, because people shouldn't be hungry. You three get nothing. Not because I don't love you, but because you don't need my money and you didn't earn my gratitude. The room was silent except for Elena's sobbing. Then Sarah spoke. For the first time since the announcement, her voice was quiet but clear. Dad, I don't want your money. I never did. I moved to Seattle because I wanted to be near you, not because I was angling for inheritance. I'm glad Helen and Carlos and Anne are getting what they deserve. They're good people, better than I was for 15 years. But I need you to know, I didn't change because of the test. I changed because the test made me see what I'd become. Someone who'd abandoned her father. Someone who'd prioritized career over the one person who'd always been there. The test woke me up, and I'm grateful for that. I don't need your money, Dad. I just need more time with you. That's all I've ever needed. Robert looked at his daughter, his eldest child, who'd spent 15 years too busy and 2 years learning to care, and felt tears building. I know, sweetheart. I know. And that's why you're the only one who passed the real test. What real test? Marcus demanded. You just said the money wasn't real. The money wasn't real, Robert agreed. But your reactions are very real, and very revealing. He pulled out another envelope, labeled, The Real Inheritance. There was a second test. A test none of you knew about. The test wasn't how often you'd visit for money. It was what you'd do when I told you there was no money. Sarah, you just said you don't want my money. You said you're grateful for the test because it woke you up. You said you just want more time with me. That's the correct answer. That's the only answer that matters. Marcus, you shouted. You're angry. You feel cheated. You participated in something you considered beneath you for 2 years and now you're getting nothing. Your first reaction is rage, not understanding. Elena, you're sobbing. You feel guilty. You know you failed. But you're crying because you lost money, not because you hurt me. He opened the envelope. The real inheritance works like this. I'm not dying. I'm 80 years old, but I'm healthy enough. I might have 5 years left, might have 10. And during those years, I'll be watching. Watching to see if your behavior over the past 2 years continues or reverts. Sarah, if you keep visiting, not because of tests, not because of money, but because you want to, you'll inherit 30% of whatever remains of my estate when I actually die. Marcus, if you figure out that the point of having a father isn't obligation but connection, you'll inherit 30%. Elena, if you prove that your wedding day promise to do better is real and not just guilt talking, you'll inherit 30%. The remaining 10% goes to Helen, Carlos, and no matter what, they've earned it. But the 70% you three might split? That depends entirely on who you become over the next however many years I have left. The test isn't over. It's just beginning. And this time, you won't know when I'm measuring. You won't know when I'm watching. You'll just have to be genuine. Or not. Your choice. The room remained silent for a long moment after Robert's revelation. The weight of what he'd just said, that the real test was only beginning, that they'd be watched without knowing when, settled over the 3 adult children like a heavy fog. Marcus stood up first. His face was red, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. This is insane. You're insane. You manipulated us for 2 years, dangled money in front of us like we're performing monkeys, and now you're saying, surprise, the money was fake, but keep performing anyway because maybe you'll get real money someday? Do you have any idea how sick that is? Vanessa, his wife, touched his arm. Marcus, let's just go. No. Marcus shook off her hand. I'm done. I'm done with the games, the tests, the manipulation. You want to know why we didn't visit you for 5 years after Mom died? Because this is who you are. Controlling. Manipulative. Everything's a transaction. Everything's a test. You couldn't just tell us you were lonely. You had to create an elaborate experiment to prove we're bad children. Well, congratulations, Dad. You proved it. We're terrible. You win. I hope you're happy sitting alone in this house with your moral superiority. He grabbed his coat, motioned to Vanessa. "We're leaving. Boys, get your stuff." His sons, who'd been sitting quietly on the floor playing on their phones, scrambled to their feet. Marcus stopped at the door, turned back. "And for the record, I was consistent for 2 years. 22 out of 24 months I showed up. That's more than 90% reliability. But that's not good enough for you because I didn't perform enough emotion. I didn't cry. I didn't ask deep questions. I didn't pretend this was anything other than what it was, an obligation. And you're right, it was an obligation. Because that's what our relationship has been for 20 years. Obligatory. And you know what? That's on you as much as it's on me." He left. Vanessa and the boys followed. The door slammed. Elena was still crying, quieter now. Bradley had his arm around her shoulders. "Dad," she said, her voice small and broken. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're right about everything. I'm terrible at relationships. I'm terrible at prioritizing people over work. I've been terrible to you. And I want to say I'll change, but you're right to not believe me. Because I've said it before and I never do." She wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath. "I love you. I know that doesn't mean much when I can't show it consistently. But I do. And I'm going to try. Really try. Not for money. Not for inheritance. Just because I should. Because you deserve a daughter who shows up. I'm not sure I know how to be that person." Bradley spoke for the first time. "Mr. Mitchell, if I may. Elena's been in therapy since the wedding. She's working on understanding why she avoids emotional connection. It's not an excuse, but it's a reason. Her mother's death when she was 15, the way she learned to cope by shutting down. It's hard for her, but she's trying. I see her trying." Robert looked at his youngest daughter, 35 years old, successful, capable in every area of life except the one that mattered most, and felt a complicated mix of love and disappointment. "I appreciate you trying, Elena. I do. But trying without results is just intention. And I can't give you credit for intention anymore. I gave you credit for intention for 15 years. She means to call. She wants to visit. She'll make it next time. Intention without action is nothing. So yes, try. But know that I'll be measuring actions, not efforts. Results, not attempts." Elena nodded, fresh tears falling. She and Bradley left quietly. Sarah remained, sitting calmly on the couch, watching her father with an expression that was thoughtful, measured, perhaps even understanding. When the door closed behind Elena and Bradley, Sarah spoke. "That was brutal." "Yes. Was it necessary?" "I think so." "Why?" Robert sat down in his armchair, the same chair he'd sat in every Friday night for 2 years, watching the door, waiting for children who rarely came. "Because I'm 80 years old, Sarah. I don't have time for subtlety anymore. I don't have time to hope people figure things out eventually. If I want honesty, I have to demand it. If I want to know who my children really are, I have to create conditions that reveal truth." Sarah nodded slowly. "And what did you learn? About us? About me?" "I learned that you're capable of change. That underneath the career-obsessed woman who ignored her father for 15 years, there's someone who actually cares. I learned that Marcus is fundamentally performative. He'll do what's required but no more, and he resents being required to do anything. I learned that Elena is broken in ways she might never fix, though I hope therapy helps. And the real inheritance, the 70% we might split? Is that real, or is that another layer of the test?" Robert smiled, a genuine smile, the first one since the meeting started. "That's real. My will is filed with Michael, Helen, Carlos, and get 30% immediately upon my death. No conditions. The remaining 70% is split among you three, based on a formula Michael and I developed. It measures frequency of contact, quality of interaction, presence during medical events, and something we're calling emotional authenticity. It's subjective, but documented. When I die, Michael will have years of data to justify whatever distribution we determine is fair. So we're still being tested. Forever. Until you die. No. You're not being tested. You're being observed. There's a difference. A test requires you to perform. Observation requires you to be. I'm no longer interested in performance. I want to see who you actually are when you think I'm not watching. Sarah considered this, then asked, what if I keep visiting not because I want to, but because I'm good at pretending I want to? How would you know the difference? I wouldn't, not with certainty. But Sarah, you've already shown me something Marcus and Elena haven't. You moved to Seattle. You took a remote job so you could be near me. That's not performative. That's a life choice. That's restructuring your entire existence to accommodate relationship. That's real. Even if every individual visit is partly performance, the framework of your life now includes me. That matters. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, then stood, walked over to her father, knelt beside his chair. Dad, I'm going to tell you something I should have told you 5 years ago when Mom died. I'm going to tell you why I stayed away. Robert looked at his daughter, saw tears in her eyes, waited. I stayed away because I was angry at you. When Mom got sick, you became her full-time caregiver. You stopped working, stopped seeing friends. Your entire world became her cancer, her treatment, her pain, her dying. And I watched you pour everything into her. Every ounce of attention, every moment of care. You were the perfect husband, devoted, present, loving. And I was jealous, because you'd never been that present with me. When I was growing up, you were building your company, working 70-hour weeks, missing recitals and games and graduations. You chose work over me. But when Mom was dying, you chose her over everything. And I thought, why her and not me? Why did she get the devoted version of you and I got the workaholic? Robert felt like he'd been punched in the chest. In all the years since Catherine's death, through all the loneliness and abandonment and eventual test, this reason had never occurred to him. Sarah, I had no idea you felt that way. I know you didn't, because I never told you. I stayed away and let you think I was just busy. But the truth is I was punishing you. For all those years you chose work over me. And then when you finally learned how to be present, you gave that gift to your second wife instead of your daughter. So when she died and you were alone and you needed me, I wasn't there. Because you weren't there for me when I needed you. Tears were streaming down her face now. But the test made me realize something. I was doing to you exactly what you did to me. I was choosing career over family. I was too busy for the people who mattered. I was becoming you. And I hated that. So I changed, not for the test, not for money, but because I saw myself turning into the father I resented, and I couldn't stand it. Robert reached down, took his daughter's hands in his. They were both crying now. Sarah, I'm so sorry. You're right. About all of it. I was a terrible father when you were young. I prioritized building a company over building a relationship with my daughter. And when I finally learned, too late, far too late, how to be present for someone, I gave that to Catherine. Because she was dying and I couldn't save her, but I could be there. But you're right. You deserved that version of me first. And I failed you. They sat there together, father and daughter, finally speaking truths that had been buried for decades. I'm sorry, Robert said again. I can't go back and be the father you needed. But I can try to be the father you need now. If you'll let me, I will. And I'm sorry too. For punishing you with absence, for wasting 5 years, for not talking to you about this when Mom died instead of just disappearing. We're both sorry. And we're both trying. That's enough. That has to be enough. Sarah stayed for another 2 hours that evening. They talked about Catherine, about Sarah's childhood, about regrets and missed opportunities, and the question of whether people can really change or whether they just become better at managing their flaws. When Sarah finally left, she hugged her father at the door. Long, tight, genuine. I'll see you Tuesday, she said, for dinner. Not because of tests or inheritance, just because I want to. I'd like that. After she left, Robert sat alone in his quiet house and wrote in his journal. October 15th, 2021. The reveal. Marcus reacted exactly as I expected. Anger. Defensiveness. accusations of manipulation. He's not wrong. I did manipulate them. But sometimes manipulation is the only way to reveal truth. He left angry. I don't know if he'll come back. Maybe the relationship is over. Maybe it was never really there to begin with. Elena reacted exactly as I expected. Guilt, self-flagellation, promises to change. I've heard these promises before. I'll believe them when I see sustained action. Bradley seems like a good influence. Therapy might help, but I'm not optimistic. Sarah surprised me. The anger she'd been carrying for 20 years, anger I never knew existed, finally came out. And it explained everything. She wasn't too busy. She was too hurt. And hurt people hurt people. She became absent the way I was absent. And then she saw herself in me, and hated it enough to change. That's transformation. That's real growth. The test revealed more than I expected. Not just who my children are, but who I was. Who I failed to be. I don't know how much time I have left. But however much it is, I want to spend it being the father Sarah needed 20 years ago. Better late than never. Or maybe just better late than never trying. 3 days passed. Marcus didn't call. Elena sent a text. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry. I'll do better. No visit planned. Sarah came Tuesday as promised. Brought groceries. They made dinner together. Salmon, roasted vegetables, Catherine's recipe for garlic bread. They ate and talked and washed dishes, and it felt normal. Not obligatory. Not performative. Just normal. A week later, Carlos Mendoza, the landscaper, knocked on Robert's door. He was crying. Mr. Robert, I don't understand. Mr. Chen called me. Said something about $180,000? Is this real? Robert invited him in. Explained everything. The test. The inheritance. The decision to give his money to people who'd actually cared. Carlos couldn't speak for several minutes. Just cried. Finally said, You are giving my children college. You are giving my wife a house paid. You are giving my family a future. Why? I am just your landscaper. You're not just my landscaper, Carlos. You're my friend. You invited me to Maria's quinceanera. You text me pictures of your tomatoes. You bring me tamales at Christmas. You treat me like a person. That's worth more than money. But since I have money and you need it, it should go to you. Carlos hugged Robert, long, hard, sobbing. Helen, the home health nurse, reacted similarly. Disbelief, then tears, then overwhelming gratitude. This will change my children's lives, she whispered. I can stop working 2 jobs. I can be there for them. Like you needed your children to be there for you. Thank you. Thank you. And, the neighbor, was quiet when Robert told her. Just nodded slowly, tears running down her face. Catherine would be proud of you, she said finally. Giving your money to people who needed it instead of people who wanted it. She always said you were a better man than you gave yourself credit for. Those 3, Helen, Carlos, and, became Robert's real family over the following months. Helen visited twice a week as always, but now they talked for hours. She told him about her kids' school plays and soccer games, and he attended when he could. Carlos brought his entire family for Sunday dinners once a month. His children called Robert Abuelo, and meant it, and came by every morning with coffee. They'd sit on the porch and watch the sunrise over Lake Washington and talk about their late spouses and aging and whether there was anything after death. These people filled Robert's life in ways his actual children had never managed. Marcus didn't contact Robert for 3 months. Then, in January 2022, he sent an email. Dad, I've been thinking about what you said. About our relationship being obligatory. You're right. It has been. And that's partly your fault. You were never around when I was a kid, but it's mostly my fault. I'm 40 years old. I can't blame my childhood forever. I don't know if I can be the son you want. I don't know if I'm capable of the emotional depth Sarah apparently has or the guilt Elena performs. I'm practical. I'm logical. I show love through consistency and responsibility, not through deep conversations and tears. But I'm willing to try something. Once a month, I'll drive up from Portland. We'll spend the day together. Not for inheritance. Not for tests. Just to see if we can build something real. I can't promise it'll work, but I can promise I'll try. Marcus, Robert replied, consistency and responsibility are forms of love. I'll take them. See you next month. Marcus visited in February 2022. Brought his sons. They went to a Mariners spring training game, something they'd never done together. It was awkward but pleasant. Marcus didn't ask deep questions, but he showed up. That was something. Elena visited in March 2022, 5 months after the reveal. She'd lost weight, looked exhausted. Therapy is hard, she admitted. I'm learning I avoid emotional intimacy because I'm terrified of losing people. Mom died when I was 15. I decided consciously or unconsciously that if I don't get close, I can't get hurt. But that means I've spent 20 years hurting everyone who tried to get close to me, including you. She didn't promise to change, just said, I'm working on it. That's all I can offer right now. Robert replied, working on it is enough. Keep working. Sarah visited weekly. Their Tuesday dinners became sacred. She brought James, her boyfriend, and Robert approved of him. Sarah talked about maybe getting married again, 3rd time, but this time felt different, she said. More mature, more real. The months passed. Robert turned 81 in May 2022. May 2022 to May 2024, the final 2 years. Robert's health declined gradually but steadily. The heart condition worsened. The medication increased. By late 2022, he needed oxygen occasionally. By mid-2023, he needed it most of the time. By early 2024, he was essentially homebound. But he wasn't alone. Sarah visited 3 to 4 times per week, not because of inheritance, not because of obligation, but because, as she told James one evening, he's my dad, and I wasted 15 years. I'm not wasting what's left. She was there for doctor appointments. She managed his medications. She organized his home care. She sat with him during infusion treatments. She held his hand when he was scared. In December 2023, Sarah and James got married in a small ceremony in Robert's living room. Robert was too weak to travel to a venue, so they brought the wedding to him. 20 people, a minister, simple vows, tears. Thank you for being here, Dad, Sarah said during her vows to James, turning to look at her father in his armchair, oxygen tube in his nose. Thank you for pushing me to be better, for loving me even when I didn't deserve it, for giving me the chance to make this right. Robert cried through the entire ceremony. Marcus visited monthly as promised. Every first Saturday, he'd drive up from Portland with his sons. They'd spend the day, sometimes doing activities, sometimes just sitting in the living room talking about nothing important, sometimes playing board games with the boys. It wasn't deep. It wasn't emotionally vulnerable. But it was consistent. And by mid-2023, Marcus's consistency had accumulated into something that looked a lot like relationship. One Saturday in August 2023, after the boys had fallen asleep in the guest room, Marcus and Robert sat on the porch watching the sunset. Marcus said, I'm not good at this. The emotional stuff, the heart-to-heart conversations, that's not who I am. But I want you to know, I'm glad I've been coming. Not because of inheritance, because these Saturdays with the boys, they're good. Tyler asks me about you during the week. When do we see Grandpa Robert again? And I realize, I'm building for them what we didn't have. I'm showing them that grandfathers matter. That old people aren't just obligatory visits. They're people with stories and wisdom and time. So thank you for forcing me to start. I wouldn't have done it on my own. Robert nodded. Consistency is love, Marcus. You're showing up. That's enough. Elena was the complicated one. She'd visit for 2 months straight, then disappear for 3 months, then visit for a month, then vanish for 2. Each time she reappeared, she'd apologize. Explain. Work crisis. Mental health crisis. Avoidance crisis. Always a crisis. By early 2024, Robert stopped expecting consistency from Elena. He loved her, but he accepted that she was broken in ways that might never heal. Some relationships can't be fixed. Some people can't overcome their damage no matter how much they want to. The last time Elena visited was March 2024. Robert was very weak by then, sleeping most of the day, awake only a few hours. She sat beside his bed and said, "Dad, I'm sorry I'm not Sarah. I'm sorry I'm not Marcus. I'm sorry I can't be the daughter who shows up consistently. I love you, but I'm broken, and I don't know if I'll ever be unbroken." Robert took her hand. "I know, sweetheart, I know. And I love you anyway. Broken people need love too. Maybe more than unbroken people. Will you forgive me? For all the years I wasn't there? For all the times I said I'd come and didn't? I already forgave you. Long ago. The question is whether you'll forgive yourself." She cried. They sat together in silence until Robert fell asleep. Helen, Carlos, and remained constants throughout. Helen shifted from home health nurse to friend who happened to be medically trained. She managed Robert's care but also brought her kids to meet him, told him stories, made him laugh. Carlos installed a garden bed in Robert's backyard at ground level, so Robert could tend tomatoes from his wheelchair. They'd work in the garden together on sunny days, talking about everything and nothing, and was there every morning until the very end. Coffee on the porch, sunrise watch, quiet companionship that didn't require words. These three, the landscaper, the nurse, the neighbor, gave Robert more comfort in his final years than his own children ever had. And he told them so. "You three are my family," he said one afternoon in April 2024. All three of them gathered in his living room. "Blood relatives are the family you're born with, but real family is the people who show up. You showed up. You're my real family." April 28, 2024, Robert's health took a sharp turn. Hospice was called. Days left, maybe a week, the doctor said. Sarah was there immediately. Took leave from work. Set up a cot in Robert's room. Didn't leave his side. Marcus drove up from Portland. Stayed in the guest room. Visited Robert multiple times a day, sitting quietly beside the bed, holding his father's hand even though Marcus wasn't a hand-holding type of person. Elena flew in from a work conference in Chicago. Arrived in tears. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. I'm so sorry for everything." Helen, Carlos, and rotated shifts. Making sure someone was always with Robert. Making sure he was never alone. May 3, 2024, Robert was barely conscious, drifting in and out. Sarah sat beside him, holding his hand. He opened his eyes, looked at her, smiled weakly. "You came back," he whispered. "You came back to me." "I did, Dad. I'm here. I'm not leaving. I'm proud of you. So proud. You became who I always hoped you'd be. You made me better. The test made me better." "Good. That's good. That's all I wanted. For you to see, to understand, to change. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. Thank you. For the last few years. For showing up. For letting me be your father." Finally, Marcus came in, stood on the other side of the bed. He wasn't crying but his face was pained. "Dad," Marcus said, "I'm sorry I wasn't better. I'm sorry I was so mechanical, so obligatory. I wish I'd figured it out sooner." Robert squeezed his hand weakly. "You showed up, Marcus. Every month, for 3 years. That's love. Your kind of love. It's enough." Elena arrived last, out of breath from rushing up the stairs. She knelt beside the bed, crying openly. "Dad, please don't go. Please. I just figured things out. I was going to do better. I promise I was going to do better." Robert looked at his youngest daughter, brilliant, successful, broken, and felt overwhelming sadness. Not for himself, for her. Because he knew, she'd carry this guilt for the rest of her life. She'd never forgive herself for the years she wasted, and there was nothing he could do to ease that burden. "It's okay, Elena. It's okay. I forgive you. I've always forgiven you. Now you need to forgive yourself. I can't. I don't deserve forgiveness. Nobody deserves forgiveness. That's why it's grace. Take it, please. Take the forgiveness. Don't carry this forever. And Helen and Carlos came in together, stood at the foot of the bed. The three strangers who'd become family. Robert looked at all six people, 3 biological children, 3 chosen family, and felt peace. Thank you, he whispered. All of you, for being here, for letting me matter, for showing me love, in your own ways. Thank you. Those were his last words. Robert Mitchell died at 8:47 p.m. on May 3, 2024, surrounded by the people who'd shown up. He was 83 years old. May 10, 2024, the reading of Robert Mitchell's actual will. Michael Chen's law office. Same room where the inheritance test had been announced nearly 5 years earlier. Same mahogany desk. Same uncomfortable chairs. But this time, there were 6 people present instead of 3. Sarah, Marcus, and Elena sat in the front row. Helen, Carlos, and Anne sat in the back, looking uncomfortable in this formal legal setting, unsure why they'd been asked to attend. Michael Chen stood at the front, holding a thick legal document, Robert's final will, signed and notarized 2 weeks before his death. Before we begin, Michael said, I want to clarify something. This is not like the inheritance test. This is Robert's actual, legal, binding will. What I'm about to read will determine the distribution of his remaining estate, which totals approximately $3.8 million after final expenses. Elena gasped. I thought he said the estate was $4.2 million? He earned interest over the past few years, but he also spent money on medical care, living expenses, and charitable donations. The current amount is $3.8 million. Now, let me read the distribution. He opened the document, began reading. I, Robert Mitchell, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. First, I want to address my 3 biological children, Sarah, Marcus, and Elena. When I announced the inheritance test in October 2019, I told you it was about measuring your character. That was true. But I also told you that the real test was ongoing, that I'd be watching your behavior after you knew there was no guaranteed money. That was also true. For 4.5 years after that announcement, I documented everything. Every visit, every phone call, every gesture of care or absence of care. Michael Chen has access to my detailed records, which he will use to determine your distributions. But before we get to the numbers, I want to say something to each of you. Michael paused, looking at the 3 children. They sat frozen, waiting. Sarah, you transformed. When your mother Catherine died, you disappeared from my life for 5 years. I later learned why. You were angry at me for being an absent father during your childhood. Fair. I deserved that anger. But the test woke you up. You moved to Seattle. You visited weekly. You became the daughter Catherine always believed you could be. You were there for my final years in ways that mattered. You held my hand when I was dying. You showed up. That's everything. Thank you. Marcus, you are who you are. Practical, logical, consistent. You visit monthly for 3 years because you said you would. That's not nothing. In fact, in some ways, it's more impressive than Sarah's emotional connection. Emotions fade. Commitments require discipline. You showed discipline. You brought your sons. You let me be their grandfather. You built something sustainable even if it wasn't deep. I respect that. Thank you. Elena, you're broken, sweetheart. And I don't say that with judgment. I say it with sadness. You love me. I know you do. But you can't show it consistently. You try, then you fail, then you try again. The pattern never breaks. I hope therapy helps. I hope Bradley helps. I hope one day you figure out how to sustain connection instead of cycling through bursts of effort followed by long absence. But I also accept, maybe you can't. Maybe some people are just wired differently. I love you anyway. Sarah was crying. Marcus sat stoically. Elena had her face in her hands. Michael continued. Now, the distribution. My estate will be divided as follows. To Helen Sanderson, my home health nurse and friend, $400,000. This is in addition to the $400,000 you received from the charitable trust in 2021. You cared for me with professionalism and warmth. You treated me like a person, not a patient. Your children call me Abuelo Robert. You deserve this. To Carlos Mendoza, my landscaper and friend, $180,000. This is in addition to the $180,000 you received from the charitable trust in 2021. You invited me into your family. You brought me joy. You made me laugh. Your tomatoes were excellent. You deserve this. To Ann Patterson, my neighbor and friend, $220,000. This is in addition to the $220,000 you received from the charitable trust in 2021. You were there every morning with coffee. You listened when I grieved Catherine. You called 911 when I fell. You were my daily constant. You deserve this. That's $800,000 to the 3 people who showed me unconditional care. Helen, Carlos, and Ann sat in stunned silence in the back row. They'd already received money. Now they were getting more. Wait, Marcus said. You gave them money in 2021? Yes, Michael confirmed. When Robert announced the fake inheritance test results, he actually did distribute $800,000 to Helen, Carlos, and Ann. That wasn't fake. That money was transferred immediately. They've had it for 3 years. So the fake part was only our money? Sarah asked. Correct. Your father gave away $800,000 to people who cared for him without expectation of return. The remaining $3.8 million is what we're distributing today. Michael returned to the will. The remaining $3.8 million will be distributed among my 3 children based on the following formula. Frequency of contact, 40% weight quality of interaction, 30% weight presence during medical crises, 20% weight emotional authenticity, 10% weight. Based on my detailed records from October 2019 to May 2024, the scores are: Sarah Mitchell, 94 out of 100 points. Marcus Mitchell, 71 out of 100 points. Elena Mitchell, 38 out of 100 points. Total points, 203. Sarah's distribution, 94/203, equals 46.3% of $3.8 million equals $1,759,400. Marcus's distribution, 71/203, equals 35% of $3.8 million equals $1,330,000. Elena's distribution, 38/203, equals 18.7% of $3.8 million equals $710,600. These amounts will be transferred within 30 days of this reading. Silence. Heavy, complicated silence. Elena was the first to speak. I get $710,000 after failing for 5 years? You get $710,000 because you tried, even when you failed, Michael said, reading from Robert's letter. Your father wrote, Elena will receive money not because she earned it, but because I love her. Love isn't transactional. The test measured character. The inheritance is love. She has flawed character, but she's still my daughter. Elena broke down completely. Bradley held her while she sobbed. Sarah asked quietly, what about the emotional authenticity scores? How were those calculated? Michael pulled out a separate document. Your father kept a detailed journal. Every visit was graded subjectively on a scale of 1 to 10 for emotional authenticity. Did the visit feel genuine or performative? Were you present or distracted? Did you ask about him or just fulfill an obligation? Those grades were averaged over 4.5 years, and I scored highest. Sarah asked, by a significant margin. Your average authenticity score was 9.1 out of 10. Marcus was 5.8. Elena was 4.2. Marcus finally spoke. I'm curious. The scoring system, was it always going to be this formula? Or did Dad adjust it based on our behavior? Michael smiled slightly. Your father was clever. He created 5 different scoring formulas over the years, each weighted differently. He ran all 5 calculations last month before he died. Then he chose the formula that produced the distribution he felt was most fair based on his subjective assessment. In other words, he did the math, but he also followed his heart. Sarah's distribution would have been highest under any formula. But Marcus and Elena's percentages could have varied significantly depending on which formula he chose. So even at the end, it was about what he felt was fair, not just the numbers. Exactly. Your father said, the numbers reveal patterns. But humans aren't just patterns. They're messy and complicated. So I'll use the numbers to guide me, but my heart gets final say. He chose the formula that felt right. Sarah stood, walked to where Helen, Carlos, and Saturday. Sarah extended her hand to Helen first. Thank you for taking care of him, for being there when I wasn't. You deserve every penny. Helen stood, hugged Sarah instead of shaking her hand. Your father talked about you all the time. He was so proud of who you became. He said you gave him hope that people can change. Sarah moved to Carlos. Thank you for the garden, for bringing your family, for treating him like abuelo. Carlos couldn't speak, just nodded, tears streaming. Sarah hugged and laughed. Thank you for the mornings. He told me those were his favorite part of every day. Coffee with Anne, watching the sunrise. He said you understood his grief in ways nobody else could, and whispered, he understood mine too. We saved each other. Marcus stood next, approached the three people who'd inherited alongside him. He shook each of their hands formally. Thank you for being better family than we were. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't vulnerable, but it was sincere. That was Marcus's way. Elena stayed seated, crying too hard to stand. Bradley spoke for her. Thank you, all of you, for loving him, for showing us what showing up looks like. Michael Chen cleared his throat. There's one more thing. A video message. Robert recorded it 2 weeks before he died, when he knew the end was close. He asked that it be played at this reading. Are you ready? The 6 people nodded. Michael turned on a screen. Robert appeared, gaunt, pale, oxygen tube visible, but alert and clear-eyed. His voice was weak but steady. If you're watching this, I'm dead. And you're all gathered in Michael's office learning about money. But before you leave with your checks, I need to say a few final things. First, to Helen, Carlos, and Anne, you weren't obligated to care about me. You chose to. That choice gave my final years meaning and joy. The money I'm leaving you isn't payment. It's gratitude. You made me feel seen. Thank you. Second, to my children. Sarah, you proved people can change. For 15 years you prioritized career over family, and I hated watching you become me. But then you looked in the mirror, didn't like what you saw, and chose differently. That takes courage. You moved to Seattle. You showed up weekly. You were there when I died. You're getting the largest inheritance not because you performed best on some formula but because you actually transformed. I'm so proud of you. I love you. Take the money and build a beautiful life. You've earned it. Marcus, you're getting a substantial inheritance because consistency matters. You're not emotionally demonstrative. You don't cry. You don't do heart-to-heart conversations. That's fine. You showed up every month for 3 years. You brought your sons. You were reliable. Reliability is a form of love. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I appreciate who you are even if you're not who Sarah is. Take the money and keep being consistent. The world needs people who do what they say they'll do. Elena, you're getting the smallest inheritance among my children, but you're still getting $710,000. That's more than most people see in a lifetime. You didn't earn it by test standards. You failed most months, but I'm giving it to you anyway because you're my daughter and I love you. Love isn't earned, it's given. I hope you use this money to fund more therapy, to figure out why connection is so hard for you, to break the patterns that have kept you lonely. You deserve to be happy, sweetheart. You deserve to have relationships that don't exhaust you. Fight for that. Third, to all 3 of you together. The test wasn't about money. It was never about money. I have had $4 million. That's a lot for one person but not generational wealth. You're all successful. You don't need my money to survive. The test was about showing you what I'd learned too late, Time with people you love is the only thing that matters. Not career, not achievement, not wealth, just time, presence, showing up. I built a company, made millions, achieved success by every external measure. But I was an absent father. I missed your childhoods, Sarah, Marcus. I prioritized work over family. And when Catherine got sick, I finally understood what I'd lost. All those years, all those moments, gone. So I tried to get them back with you three. But you were adults now with your own careers and families. And you were doing to me what I'd done to you, choosing achievement over connection. The test was my way of forcing the issue, of making you see what I'd learned, that one day you'll be old, one day you'll be dying, and all the achievements won't matter. Only the people who show up will matter. I hope you learned that. I hope the test worked. Not for my benefit, I'm dead now, too late for me, but for yours, for your own relationships, for your children, Marcus, for your future children, Sarah and Elena. Don't make the mistakes I made. Don't wait until people are dying to prioritize them. Show up now, while there's time. That's all I have to say. Take the money. Use it well. Love each other. And for God's sake, show up for the people who matter. I love you all. Goodbye. The screen went dark. Nobody moved for a long moment. Sarah was crying silently. Marcus had his face in his hands. Elena was shaking with sobs. Finally, Michael Chen spoke. That concludes the reading. The funds will be transferred within 30 days. If you have questions about the distribution, I have Robert's detailed journals and scoring documents available. But I suspect most of you don't want to see the math. You just want to remember him. He was right. Nobody asked for the documents. The 6 people filed out of the office. In the parking lot, they stood together awkwardly, unsure how to say goodbye. Sarah broke the silence. We should stay in touch. All of us. Helen, Carlos, and you were Dad's family. That makes you our family. Helen smiled. I'd like that. Carlos nodded. Maria's quinceañera is next month. You're all invited. Robert would want you there. And added, I still have my morning coffee on the porch. Anyone's welcome to join me. Sunrise is the same time every day. Marcus shook hands with each of them, promised to stay in touch, got in his car with Vanessa and the boys. Elena hugged everyone, apologized one more time for failing, promised to do better, drove away with Bradley. Sarah stayed in the parking lot with Helen, Carlos, and Anne. They stood there as the sun set, talking about Robert, about memories, about the strange way grief and gratitude can coexist. He was a good man, Anne said. Flawed, complicated, but good. He was, Sarah agreed. And he taught me something important. It's never too late to change. He gave me that gift. I'll spend the rest of my life honoring it. 3 months later, Sarah attended Maria Mendoza's quinceañera. She danced with Carlos's family, toasted to Robert's memory, felt connected to this chosen family in ways she'd never felt with her own. She visited, and every Sunday morning, coffee on the porch, sunrise, stories about Robert and Catherine and the nature of love and loss. She had dinner with Helen and her kids once a month, became Aunt Sarah to children who needed extra support. And every year on May 3rd, the anniversary of Robert's death, Sarah, Marcus, Elena, Helen, Carlos, and Anne gathered at Robert's grave. They'd share memories, toast with Catherine's favorite wine, laugh and cry. And Sarah would say the same thing every year. Thank you, Dad, for the test, for forcing me to see who I'd become, for giving me the chance to be better. I showed up, and I'll keep showing up, for everyone, for the rest of my life. That's your legacy, not the money. The showing up. Robert Mitchell, 1941 to 2024 father, businessman, teacher, who taught his children that love is measured not in words but in presence. The inheritance wasn't money, it was the lesson. Show up, while there's time.